One of the big things was people are really hungry for a way to get away. I just had a call this morning with an expert in the HR space where she's like, I'm just kind of burnt out and I really just want to kind of reset. And, people are hungry for just something different. No one, like, I don't think I ever need to watch Netflix again. That seemed to be a pretty universal sentiment that, we've all kind of caught up on any binge watching we've ever wanted to and more. We all have got closets or, garages full of junk. People are really just looking to, kind of disconnect, unwind, and really just kind of get that R&R that's seems so rare these days.
Welcome to Travel Buddy, presented by Switchfly. In this podcast, we talk about all things travel, rewards, and loyalty. Let's get to it. Hello, James and Ian, and welcome back to another episode of the Travel Buddy podcast presented by Switchfly. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about your travel plans this summer. So, as I understand it, you guys have traveled all over. So there was a couple of conferences this summer, and then you've got some personal travel coming up soon. So let's take it one at a time. But we've got Total Rewards, which is a massive conference that was in Cincinnati, Ohio, talking about rewards and recognition solutions in the HR tech space. And then soon after that, in Orlando, you had the Loyalty Expo. And then after that, you went to Atlanta for the SHRM chapter, for the Atlanta chapter for the SHRM organization. So tell me a little bit about those conferences. What was your experience? What did you love? What could have been better? And then what's your big takeaway?
Yeah. Definitely went through my own personal side of like those point accruals and, earning status, traveling, the whole East Coast of America.
That's great.
Um, one of the big things was people are really hungry for a way to get away. I just had a call this morning with an expert in the HR space where she's like, I'm just kind of burnt out and I really just want to kind of reset. And, people are hungry for just something different. No one, like, I don't think I ever need to watch Netflix again. That seemed to be a pretty universal sentiment that, we've all kind of caught up on any binge watching we've ever wanted to and more. We all have got closets or, garages full of junk. People are really just looking to, kind of disconnect, unwind, and really just kind of get that R&R that's seems so rare these days. The other thing too is there's just kind of there's an offering or a solution for pretty much everyone we've had a conversation with. It wasn't really one of those like, hey, love to hear about your, loyalty program. That's a really cool, employer brand you have, but we can't, what's really exciting about this year is, with the onboarding or the launch of Go, we've got a solution for pretty much any size or shape of brand or employer, as well as, continuing to have conversations around more of the traditional white label travel solution, both in the loyalty as well as in the HR tech space. And the other thing too is, being at Loyalty Expo, hearing and seeing what a bunch of brands are doing was super interesting as to, what's your gas station versus, we even talked to a telecom company that was looking on onboarding, potentially like just giving value away to their members because, they didn't want to just be seen as a utility where because I live at, this lat long, this is what you get and this is the only solution. But really, how do we bring value to our brand and build relationships was a theme literally across the entire East Coast. And I'm assuming the West Coast as well. Just happened to be where we landed the last couple of weeks.
That's great. That's great. What did you feel? How was the energy or the vibe at some of these conferences? Because I've heard mixed reviews. I've heard some conferences are really great, post COVID. People are excited to get back into, talking to each other in real life. But then I've heard other, like just since COVID, it just hasn't been like the same vibe, as it was in 2019 and before. Like, did you feel any of that while you were there?
A little bit of all the above. I really think there's some really
Okay.
strong positive interactions, and there are a couple where, it was just a different vibe. When we were at, and they all were, good conversations and good venues. But total rewards, like you talk to a lot of comp and benefits people, where traditionally that's more of, a rewards type conversation. So it's interesting to see kind of how that space and the faces seem to be changing. And it's hard to put it's really hard to tell, was this because, we're in Cincinnati, which is a little bit of an atypical trade show town versus, like a New York or a Vegas would be. But then again, we were at a smaller footprint show at Loyalty Expo down in Orlando, and people are just excited to talk. It was a lot of new faces where, hey, I might be from a brand that hasn't traditionally offered loyalty, or, we're trying to really rethink how we do our loyalty programs, as well as we're seeing a lot of synergies in different brands partnering together. I was just reading or talking to someone who, connected their Marriott and Starbucks accounts, right? Like those aren't two brands you really would, maybe there's a Starbucks in your hotel, but some of these non-traditional point unifications, and I think we're going to be seeing that more and more, is, brands trying to team up or partner up, so that they can have relevancy even where, I don't need a hotel most days of the year, but, coffee is a little more, day to day in my life. So just kind of everything and all of the above. And then, to kind of wrap it up on the Sherm note, super interesting to be able to, much smaller venue, let's say a little under 100 people there. And, just practitioners are hungry to look at non-traditional or kind of these, um, evolving benefits with, travel as a benefit becoming one of them. I mean, literally everyone I talked to said, how can I get this in the hands of my employees? I love travel. We really, we're really passionate about bringing this to our team. And I mean, this isn't, just your fast moving tech brands that you're going to hear about and, your business journal or something like that. But, I talked to one company, they're responsible for over 80% of all the wiring in houses in the US or, buildings. Not
Wow.
probably more of your like steak and potatoes type brand in a more rural part of Georgia. They're like, hey, we're really looking to, expand our footprint. We really, are trying to think differently about how we engage our people, and this would be great. The other thing too is, when the program's free to the employer, it definitely eliminates a lot of the financial conversations, and it's much more, does this align with the corporate ethos? How can we, leverage this in a way that really enhances our unlimited PTO? It's able to, be a lever for that employer brand and that employee experience that we all talk about. But, typically it's throwing more money at the problem versus how can we really incentivize people to, take a step back and get away, which, is something that I think Ian and I are both looking forward to. Me a little bit sooner than him, but, I'm excited to just take some time off after, accruing all those points and all those miles and, just kind of coming back rested and ready to go.
Amazing. Sounds really positive. What recession, Sounds like a lot of like really great growth expected and just a lot of good, I don't know, I guess good energy coming in the future. I'm excited about that, especially around travel, around loyalty and all that. That's
For
awesome.
sure.
Ian, what about you?
So just to wander around the topic a bit, I think it speaks to kind of some cultural stuff that's been going on for a while, like even pre-COVID. Um, I don't want to say it's a generational thing per se. I think it just happens to land that way of we've talked so often on this podcast and other places about how like travel and experiences are now a lot more in demand than physical stuff, regarding employee rewards and things like that. And I think it's this weird confluence of like new tech, availability for people to actually travel that, didn't arise in the past. We'll complain about like how much an airline ticket costs or something, but like in reality, it's pretty freaking cheap, compared to like if you want to go drive across the country versus fly across the country, it's far less expensive, right? So just that availability that's never really been there on such a mass scale. along with like just our access to daily news across the planet opens people's eyes more than ever before to like what's out there, right? And we hear so much every day about what's going on in Ukraine or Gaza or anywhere. And I think that sparks a curiosity for people to like learn more about not only those places, but just places in general, right? And once you learn more, you want to go see it for yourself. You want to travel. You want to like experience that stuff. And just coupled with that shift of getting away from like, do I really need another blender for the house or another car? Like, my car's running fine. Do I really need to buy a new one and upgrade? Or can
Mhm.
I go to Greece this summer or go to Australia or Utah or, whatever. Um, I think there's just this kind of weird convergence of, you know, generational tech, uh, access, logistical improvements, all these things that are just making travel so exciting in a way that it might not have been, 30, 40, 60 years before. Um, so I know I'm wandering a bit. I don't know where all that's going other than I think we're in the right space and it's making our jobs very interesting as of late to kind of figure out how to fill those needs for people and the different ways that it can be done. Both like
Yeah.
James talks about of the going loyalty rewards through your bank or your, local hardware store or just through your employer, the fact that we can for free uh to the employer have their own personalized customized travel platform that their employees have exclusive access to and they can get special rates, they can they can really make it their own. uh I think it's exciting, that kind of thing is available now, versus shoot 5-10 years ago that stuff wasn't really available, widely without paying a lot of money for development and customization, so I think it's pretty awesome. And I'm headed to France. My wife and I are taking a kind of belated honeymoon later this
Cool.
summer. We're gonna hit the Riviera and flying into Nice and spending about 10 days just kind of going up and down the French Riviera. And um,
Oh, cool.
yeah, and it's exciting. And all things considered, it's really not that much money, right? Like
Mhm.
compared to that, shoot, her and I went to New York for a long weekend last summer, and I mean, we'll see when it's done, but I would put guess it. It's probably going to be about the same, like end expenses for 10 days in southern France versus 4 days in New York. Uh, like it's wild. And that's something that, do you imagine that, in the 70s or something? There's no way that those trips would be even remotely comparable price wise,
Mm.
you know?
To touch on that too, it's so much more accessible. Like I moved to Israel in 2011, and that was right as people were starting to, move over to smartphones. The iPhone had only been out for 2, 3 years at that point, and I mean, obviously a little less common of a foreign language for people to learn. I took Spanish in high school, not Hebrew, but I mean, man, it was so much more difficult to get around the country. Like there's a couple
Mhm.
times I almost got stranded once at the Dead Sea over Shabbat, right? Like literally I can push a button on my phone in rural Wisconsin and have someone show up within, probably an hour or two, but like have someone show up reliably and take me anywhere I want to go. Like it is so stinking easy compared to what it's been even as little as what 14. I hate to age myself, but 14 years ago, and just the leaps and bounds in it every time we go somewhere out of country or even in the country. It seems like it's easier and easier. Like I'm going to be in South America a little bit, in Argentina and Peru. And I mean, shoot, I can have someone like the DoorDash guy or DoorDash equivalent cost, pennies on the dollar. They're there within 20 minutes, and the food is sadly much healthier and fresher than even in the States. Like, I'm spoiled by, we're spoiled for choice too, right? Like, I haven't left the Western Hemisphere in a couple of years, and it's really hard for me to even want to go through the jet lag process now because I can fly for 14 hours, be on the southern tip of South America, and there isn't even a time zone change. Like, plus,
Mm-hmm.
if you're into steak,
Mm-hmm.
hard to beat Argentina. So, the world is really anyone's oyster, and obviously, there is cost here. I don't want to, just kind of hand wave it away, but it's pretty darn accessible to Ian's point earlier. For us, the most expensive part is just getting there. I mean, you could have an amazing world-class meal in Peru for, under $50, where I don't remember the last time I went to Kroger and spent under, 30 or 50. So, it's amazing, what's out there, like how affordable it can be. And again, it's like I had a friend who said, just to pick on kids for an example, like they're as expensive as the parents make them, and trips are as expensive as you make them. That you can pick anything from $5 to
That's true.
5,000. But there's a lot out there for people to see, explore, and really, the data is just stronger every day that this is one of the most impactful things you can do for your well-being, holistically, whether that's, a person to a consumer brand, just to go back and pick on that telecom example, right? Like, I would never have thought that, I'd be getting booking a trip through, my cable provider. But I mean, shoot, in a world where I'm booking trips through Costco, it's not very far away, from reality. And then the employer, the classic example is I can save on my washing machine and I can buy a Dell computer. Why can't I book a trip? And now that's a possibility as well. So just, completely different than, a couple years ago when I grew up, we'd travel within the U.S. Just mostly road trips, or we'd fly, once or twice a year, Christmas at Grandma's kind of thing. But I can hardly think of, driving more than 4 or 5 hours these days because, to Ian's point, the cost is comparable, and by the time you add a hotel room, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I went to London a few months ago with it was me, my wife, and my 16-month-old daughter. And I think in a week in London, we were staying at two 5-star hotels, one in Oxford, one in London. And I think for the entire week, we spent, flights included, spent like $2,000, I think, for the whole week, something like that. Where I just think, and it's with points, and it was, we were trying to be savvy about the way that we could use our credit card rewards and things like that. But I mean, we got super cheap flights, and then we're just able to just have a great time, and it's just amazing what you can do. And I think for our generation, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but there's a little bit of like FOMO when you're seeing people traveling all over on like Instagram, and you're just like constantly like seeing all your friends out and seeing other people out. And I know this is true for my wife especially. She'll be like, "Ah, man, this person's in Greece, or this person's going to Europe or whatever. Like, I want to go so bad, especially because it's 1 billion degrees here in Texas during the summer." I just think it's like there's this pressure, but also this opportunity that you can capitalize on that. It's really exciting.
Yeah, especially
Well,
like to your point, Brandon, of the FOMO. There's so much information out there that you can not only like see, okay, I want to go there, but there's somebody out there that's like, here's how to do it on a budget. Here's how to do it 5-star. Here's how to, like, that information is so readily accessible these days of if you want to do Europe on the cheap, there's information out there easy for you to get that walks you through, like, okay, stay at a hostel here, do, this here, like,
Mm-hmm.
and just walks you through it. Where, 15 plus years ago, that would have been just you manually putting in the work, calling people, like really having to dig in and figure that stuff out yourself. Where now, heck, you can chat GPT, like, give me an itinerary for, you know, my week stay in London, for, you know, inexpensive, and it'll spit out, you know, pretty good itinerary for you. So, just that access to information, not only helps people like us at Switchfly package and put together those travel options for you, but really helps you do the research on what you want to do as well. And I think, you know, it just, all those things together are just combining to make travel so much easier and more desirable, as we go forward. And then you throw COVID in the mix, where people have to spend a year of their lives not traveling, you know, that just added this whole new layer of, yeah, actually, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine not too long ago regarding kind of during COVID, what did you miss kind of things. And we were talking about professional sports, of like when the professional sports leagues having to start shut their seasons down. I didn't miss that at all. You know, like it was like, oh, all right. Like, but I miss taking trips. You know, my sons and I would often take little 3-day weekend, you know, just quick little hops somewhere. I miss that stuff. I didn't miss watching the Packers on Sunday or something, you know. It's so I think it also helped people focus on what's important to them, and travel has always been, you know, a big one.
Yeah, and to your point, Ian, I remember getting out of the airport in Tel Aviv, and I didn't even know how to say my school's name in Hebrew, because you know that Chomi doesn't really roll off the tongue. It took 10 minutes to just tell the taxi driver where the heck I was going because he didn't speak English. Like,
Huh.
you couldn't do that if you tried today if you have a smartphone. Like it's, you know, a single app, you type it in, press a button. I mean, it's kind of a rolling joke whatever in South America, because you'll see a foreigner on a date or something. These people don't even speak the same language, but they're, you know, on a date with a mobile app. Like, you know, that's a completely separate conversation in itself. But the world is just so accessible; it's wild, and you know, there's just so much out there to do
Yeah.
and see. I mean, I'm turning into this gritty travel hipster where I only go to places that people vaguely can find on maps. But I mean, shoot, I know several brands even, or employers, where, you know, they'll have a pretty much like, we won't ask where you are program, where, you know, I know one specifically, they just tell their employees don't show up for, you know, the month of August, and you can go work anywhere in the world you want. So now, you know, and you know, at Switchfly, we're pretty lucky with how the flexibility to, you know, say you wanted to add an extra couple of days on your trip in France, you know, time shift a little bit, and boom, you know, you could extend your trip for another week and get a completely, you know, extra experience. Or, you know, that plus something like WeWork to work out of Latam. It's, you know, basically, you know, gigabit internet for your $200 a month, in a world-class office. Like, the leisure potential even of, you know, having a business trip and extending a couple days onto it. Like, there's just so many options that, you know, even 5-10 years ago really weren't even a thought, except for a very small cut of the population. And now, you know, what is it? At least, is it 40 or 50% of the employee base now has at least some work from anywhere or hybrid work environment. And I know we're kind of seeing the pendulum swing back to being in office, but I think that's more.
But we're also seeing a lot of resistance to that as well, right?
That's what I was going to say. I think as soon as some of these business leases start going, we're going to see kind of a regression to the mean. And I think COVID just pressed the gas pedal on speeding up, you know, flexible work situations, more than, you know, an exception or a unique moment in time. At least that's the hope.
I'm curious what y'all think. Yeah, given work from anywhere, given the accessibility of travel and some of these things we've been talking about, and especially for employees, and yeah, just where they're going to be. I was talking with a colleague earlier this week about how it's kind of difficult to figure out like where you want to live as a family, because you have all these options in front of you and all this accessibility, and you know, maybe even languages, like to your point, James, aren't even that big a barrier anymore. Do you guys feel that? Is that a generational thing? Is that like, do you guys talk about that with your spouses or your families where at one time you want rootedness and community and relationships, and that takes a long time to kind of build those roots and networks. But then at the same time, like I could get on a plane this weekend and be in, France working for 3 months there, because it just is so, you can just turn it on. I can
Yeah.
get an Airbnb and a flight and I'll be there in a week, I can stay as long as I want.
Yeah, so actually my wife and I talk about this quite a bit because she's originally from Mexico, and
Mm.
we talk often about especially, when my kids graduate from high school, uh do we want to stick around here? Do we want to spend half the year down in Mexico? I have a lot of roots in Wisconsin. Do I want to spend, half a year up there?
No,
There's
no,
I think
no.
actually, depending on when you're there, I think Madison in the summer is my favorite place on earth. Um,
Never been that far
It's
north.
it's the
like,
best 2 weeks of the year.
yes, the people want
Sorry.
people want the roots, and I don't think that's shifted, but your ability to, like, our base has grown, right? Like, you don't need your mother next door to be as connected as we were in the past, right? Like you said, I can jump on a plane and be there for relatively cheap this weekend, and so it's not that we need those things less, that we want that community or all those roots less. It's that our ability to have them more spread out is there. And so, yeah, sure, you can pick up and move. Once you have kids and they're in school, it gets a little more inelastic. But for the most part, heck, why not? Why not go spend the summer in Europe or Africa, or is there a region on Earth other than like Antarctica that you can go spend half a year? You know, um, between
North Korea
internet
might be
and
one of the
everything.
few.
That's why I said region. I don't mean specific country. Region. Yes. Yes.
I apparently I'm
So,
just here to poke holes in
but I,
Ian's dreams. Sorry.
my dream of spending the summer in North Korea is gone. Yeah.
No,
Sorry.
the dream to live in the south of France, though.
Yeah.
I'm with that.
Right.
Yeah, I would love to go do that.
Well, and then, I mean,
Mm.
what is it? I was just reading how there's almost 30 countries offering some version of a digital nomad program right now. I almost moved
Yeah.
to the Republic of Georgia back in 22, or sorry, 20, excuse me, 20, because they have a year working program. They actually claim to have invented wine. Our media fights them for that tooth and nail. I have no dog in that fight, so I'm not going to even venture a guess. But, like you can live fairly well, even by contemporary standards, for next to nothing. I mean, I knew some people in Lima. They rented a 2,500 square foot house, private elevator, 3 bed, 5 bath, because things are a little different there. And I mean, they're doing it on Social Security, right? Like, it's wild what's out there. So
I like
like,
how
I mean,
James was going to go to the Republic of Georgia, so his runner-up was moving to the state of Georgia. It was
Hey, I'm from Georgia. There's nothing wrong with that, okay?
you know, so like my ideal would be probably 6 to 7 months in Georgia. Like it. I love being able to walk out in shorts and not, an insulated jacket in the month of January. It's just right now I am not there because it's 98 and 100% humidity, and Brandon and Dallas can attest that's not anyone's happy place. I'm pretty sure there's some
No, it's
days in
not.
Georgia where I see a guy running
Terrible.
around with a pointy tail wearing red. It's just not fun
Mm,
or enjoyable, at least for me.
sounds about right.
But again, like, where do you live when you can live anywhere is kind of this interesting problem
Yeah.
that's popped up the last decade or so. And like up until I moved to Georgia, I mean, I didn't really have a reason to pick anywhere in one in particular. The running joke was my
Yeah.
house is my backpack or my my suitcase. And,
Yeah.
I wouldn't advise anyone do that long term, but, kind of to your point, Brandon, like, say you, your family wants to, summer somewhere and your employment situation allows it, like, why are you sitting in Texas? Sorry.
Think of 100 years ago, the urbanization process of people moving, out off farms into the cities because that's where the work is. And now we're seeing the opposite, right? We're seeing this kind of de-urbanization of moving back into more rural areas just because I live about halfway between St. Louis and Memphis, which are the two nearest major urban areas. So it's about 2 hours either way. Um, there's a few towns nearby. Both of them are under 10,000, but so it's pretty rural. And I have better internet than James in Atlanta. You know, it's there's no
Annoying.
reason for me not to live, in a rural area, right? Like, because I can, that's where the work is for me. It's just anywhere I want to go as long as there's an internet connection. So I think we're going to see that de-urbanization process continue. And like you said, Brandon, if you're not specifically tied to an area for a particular reason, why not take off?
The YouTuber that I like, his name's Ali Abdal, and he had this video that he came out with like a month or two ago where he just sold everything, got his laptop, and he got like $100 little Rode mic, and he was gone. He could work, and he's traveling all over the world for a year. And it's like, man, I'm jealous of that.
Yeah.
Now I have a kid, and that's a little bit harder. And my wife's business is here, and it makes it a little bit harder for her clients and things. But the idea that you could just throw all your stuff in a backpack and just go, I just love that idea. I think it's so fun.
Yeah.
Well, just to reel it back into, something that might be more relatable to some people listening, even if you're a teacher or something else, you get at least a couple weeks off a year. Like, there's no reason you can't, at least taste test some of this. Pretty much anyone short of, being under house arrest should be able to, go and explore. And, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, but dang, it's never been easier to move around. And, to Ian's point, the costs have gone up a little bit in some of this, but there's still a lot of deals to be found.
Well, and
Like,
and
yeah.
the working thing, my parents are retired and live half the year in a RV park outside of Phoenix, and they have a lot of friends who during the summer to get out of Phoenix, um, there's these sites and groups that have and promote seasonal work for like different, and it's a range of, somebody needs help in their accounting office during tax season, or it's I think some of their friends go and are watch the gate at a oil rig that hires people for like a month at a time to just kind of watch the gate, and check IDs. And, they do that for 3-4 hours a day or whatever, just to make a little extra cash. Right. So if you got, like James said, if you're a teacher and you got the summer off, why not go travel? There's gonna be, if you can't afford it, there's gonna be work. You don't have to work online at a computer. There's going to be something you can do. And now with our ability to access information so easily, it's gonna come to you, right? Like the work's gonna find you.
Yeah. And to kind of end on that note, maybe the gig economy and all the predictions from 10 years ago are starting to come to light. It's supposed to be what half of the workforce is supposed to be contingent, and, we could all kind of do this plug and play Uber-esque type thing, but, there really are some options there. So, whatever you want to do, there's a way to get there. And Switchfly is the way to get away. So anyway, that's a great point to kind of wrap it up on.
Perfect.
That sounds great. James, Ian, thanks so much for your insight. So excited for your travels coming up here, personally, professionally, and I love that you guys are not only can talk about travel because of your job, but you guys live it as well. And I think that's really fun that you get this personal experience and wisdom from what you guys are doing in your lives. So thankful for you and excited about next episode.
Awesome. Thanks,
We'll
Brandon.
see you next time.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Take care.